Hi, this is Dr. Darwin, the new dentist coach, with another edition of Ask Dr. Darwin on the New Dentist Coach podcast show, where we answer your questions about getting into dental school, surviving dental school, residencies after dental school, even surviving residencies, if those of you that have aspirations to become a specialist, but then also life after dental school and residency as a full-fledged and practicing dentist. Be sure to tune in and subscribe to my YouTube channel, Dr. Darwin Speaks, as I will be posting new videos weekly videos on Monday, Wednesdays, Fridays, and even on Saturdays. And I don't want you guys to miss these videos because it's been helping a lot of people based on our feedback. Also, if you have content that you want to hear or be talked about on the show, shoot me an email right here at newdentistcoach@gmail.com, newdentistcoach@gmail.com. Today we're going to be revisiting with a mentee of mine who just started dental school in Canada and who just finished up his D1 year. He's smiling, so that's a good relief for me on my end. So that tells me that he survived this first year of dental school. So on the call and on the session for today, we have student Dr. Jeremy Ho. So Jeremy, how you doing, man? Long time.
I'm good, Dr. Hayes. Thanks for having me again.
Hey, man, I'm just thankful that you made it through that first year. And it could be be brutal.
It was a grind, but we got through it.
That's right. So again, tell us a little bit about yourself so we can get reacquainted with you.
Sure. So I go to dental school at the University of Toronto in Canada. So, for the American viewers, it's not in America, but it's a great school. Our school has 96 students in each class, and we have all of the different specialties at our school, which is kind of an advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you look at it. First year, a lot of it's didactic. So we get a little bit of clinical experience. We get to assist some of the upper years in the clinics. But we kind of just get a little bit of exposure to everything. Some intro courses. We do our gross anatomy. We do a little bit of prosthodontics. We do a little bit of restorative dentistry. It's in second semester, we get the chance to do some hands-on stuff. We get to start doing some drills and fills. So for me, at least, like, we're just getting our feet wet after D1.
Right. So tell us a little bit also about how you came to choose, or how you chose dentistry as a profession. What led you to the profession?
Yeah, for sure. When I was a lot younger, I think it was about like 10, 11 years old, I got braces. And I think that was the first time I thought, wow, this is really cool. This guy's smiling all the time, he's really happy. I didn't know why, but it seemed like he really loved his job. And I thought, wow, whatever this field is, seems like something I should consider on my radar. And it was in high school that I decided, okay, I have to choose between science and business. I really like both, but I think I wanted to go into the healthcare field. I really like the idea of taking care of people. And I thought medicine, actually. And then in undergrad, I had to choose again. And I realized I liked dentistry because it was a good intersection of business and science. I had the opportunity to be a private practice owner. I liked the opportunity to kind of work with my hands. And at the same time, I just thought this was a good opportunity to maybe go back into orthodontics or maybe do general dentistry. So I thought this was the route for me. And now that I've done D1, I think it's absolutely the perfect situation for me. I'm really happy to be in dentistry. It's not for everyone, but I think it's right for me.
Good. So getting into dentistry can be a challenge. Tell us a little bit about your application process prior to this first year of dental school, about programs that you looked at. If you looked at some programs in the U.S., just kind of give us an overview about the process for you.
Yeah, for sure. So I applied for dental school in my last year of undergrad. I did a 4-year program. So basically my last year of undergrad was dominated by applications. The whole process is basically a whole year. And I didn't apply to any American schools. I was trying to stay a little bit closer to home. Home is Toronto is home for me. So I applied to 3 schools. I applied to the University of Toronto, which is in downtown Toronto. I actually applied to the school I went to undergrad for, which was Western. Western is in London, Ontario, not London, England. And it's 2 hours west of Toronto. It's a great school, great dental program. And I'm not even biased. I think they have a state-of-the-art sim lab, and everything's new. They have a wonderful clinical education there. So it's a great school. I also applied to a 3rd school, which is in Quebec. It's a different province of Canada. It's called McGill University. Maybe some of your American viewers might know McGill. Sometimes they call it the Harvard of Canada. It's a great school as well. And I only applied to 3 schools. I think back then I was a little bit scared to apply to such few schools, but looking back, I think it was right, because something that maybe some of the pre-dental students might know is that applying to schools can be very expensive. And if you apply to schools you're not really comfortable going to, at least for the first round of applications, I wanted to stay in Canada. I wanted to focus on just these 3 schools. So I applied to 3 programs, and that usually takes place around like the October, November of the year before you enter dental school. And then you apply. And what happens is that you just wait for interviews. So how each program works, so for Toronto, you just get your DAT scores and you get your GPA, and then you kind of just submit that, and you hope for the best. I wrote my DAT actually the November before starting dental school. So like I started dental school September 2017. So I wrote my DAT actually November 2016. So I didn't know my score when I applied, but I felt with my GPA, it was going to be hopefully competitive. And for Western, actually, they have a longer application process. It requires like a personal statement. You have to answer some questions that they ask you. For example, why you chose dentistry, as you asked me. They ask you some other personal questions regarding healthcare in general, and maybe even an ethics question here and there. And they have an application. It reminds me of medicine because there's like an autobiographical sketch, which you kind of have to list items on your resume, like if you've shadowed a dental practice, if you've done research. Western really likes research. If you've played sports, if you were on student government, etc. So they really care about a holistic applicant, and they really care about people with master's degrees. They think additional education is something really important at the school. And then for McGill, it's a little bit different now than it was when I applied. So McGill, they have also like a personal statement, which was a couple of questions as well as like a resume. But now they also have something called CASPER, which is an online MMI, a multiple mini interview. Some people applying to medical schools might know what CASPER is. It's still relatively new in the dental application process. And what CASPER is essentially an online series of questions. So you get a prompt for maybe like 1 or 2 minutes, and then you have 5 minutes to answer 3 questions related to that sort of prompt or video. And you do that for, I think, like maybe 9-10 times, and then they kind of calculate your score. They have a committee of people who calculate the score and they standardize it. And so that's part of the process at McGill. So I wanted to talk a little bit about how hard it is to get an interview in these 3 schools. It's very competitive. For example, at U of T, they have about 600 applicants, and I think they interview about 200 of them. And then eventually there's about 96 individuals who are in the new class. And then for Western, they have about 600 applicants as well. But I think they interview about 180 or close to 200, but I think it was closer to 180. And then they accept 56. So they accept about 10% of people who apply. Wow. And then last but not least, because I applied to McGill as an out-of-province applicant, I'm not from Quebec, so I'm in a different pool, just like how people could be out of state when they apply to dental school or medical school. For McGill, there were 273 applicants this past year. There were 31 people who were offered interviews, so only about 11% of people, and then they only had 9 offers. So it's about 3% of people outside of Quebec who apply to this dental program at McGill who get an offer. So it's extremely competitive. And they always list the GPA and the DAT is the average for people who get an interview as well as get an offer. So typically at these three schools, speaking for Toronto and McGill, you need about a 3.9 or 3.95 out of 4. So 4 is perfect, and 3.9 or 3.95, that's essentially the cream of the crop. Everyone is very smart. A lot of people in my class had, especially people who got in after 3 years of undergrad instead of 4, they had a 3.98, 3.97. You know, these people could have done anything, and they decided to go to dental school. So these people are very bright. And then for Western, they don't do a GPA. They do your 2 best years in terms of your percent average. And typically you need about a 90. So a 90% is considered competitive. Even 88, but if you have an 88, you need to compensate with a good interview or a good CV or personal statement. 90 is typically what they accept. So it's very competitive. So in terms of how I did in my application process, I applied to 3 programs. I got interviews at 2 schools. I got interviews at Toronto and Western. I was waiting for the interview at McGill. I think I was ranked about 34 or 35 out of 270, and they only interviewed 31. And there were a couple of people who declined, but I think I was the last person not to get the interview. So it was a little bit unfortunate, but you know, it would have been nice to visit Quebec, Montreal, but especially with 4th year, I think a lot of people will know that when you're trying to finish undergrad, it's very stressful to prepare for interviews and then also fly or travel, and then also, you know, spend a weekend. My interviews were all on the weekend, so you kind of lose a day or two. Whether you're stressing or prepping or getting ready for the day, you really lose a lot of time, especially in 4th year, or people who are doing a master's and trying to, you know, finish their thesis. It's very stressful. Yeah. And eventually, in terms of the number of offers, I got 2 offers. I got an offer at the University of Toronto, and I got an offer at Western. And of course, I chose University of Toronto, as you said. And I think the reason why I chose Toronto is just because, having been at Western for 4 years, I think it's important to have a change of sort of scenery. Also, I live at home now in Toronto, so I think my parents were a little bit more supportive of me going back home. But I mean, both schools are great. McGill is great as well. They each have their strengths and weaknesses, but I'm just very blessed and very glad that I was able to get into dental school the first time I applied.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's amazing. That's amazing. Thanks so much for that thorough review of the dental application process in Canada, because it is a little bit different. I also didn't know about the whole notion of the MMI. You said it's by CASPER?
Yeah. CASPER. So, like, you know, the CASPER the ghost?
Yes.
Like CASPER. Yeah, CASPER. So I can't remember. It's an acronym, I believe. You could probably search it up. But they do it for a lot of medical schools. It's their, I guess, like pre-interview screening process. They find that that's very helpful. At McGill, it's worth 10% of your application. Your CV is worth 20%, and your GPA is worth 70%.
Wow. Okay, that's good to know. I sit on a committee through the council on the American Dental Education Association, and one of the things is we're actually coming to Toronto for our fall meeting and going to have some interface between the different dental schools and also the residency programs as to some of the standard practices or best practices that both the U.S. and the Canadian schools have. And I knew nothing about this CASPER pre-interview screening process. So that's something I'm going to share with my council and see if we can get somebody to talk about it. So thanks again for sharing that part of it. So now you got into dental school. You're at University of Toronto. It's the first year. And it's like, voila, you're here. You're bombarded with all these new words, new phrases, a different level of some of the basic sciences that you've been used to over the last 3 or 4 years preceding it. Tell us a little bit about what were some of the challenges that you had during this first year?
I think, as I kind of alluded to before, people are really smart in dental school. You know, everyone's a pretty smart cookie. And, you know, the averages for dental school are really high, but that also means it's very stressful because, you know, you're surrounded by everyone every day. You're taking all the same courses. And, the dean and everyone will kind of tell you it's no longer a competition, but like the undergrad mentality is still there. It's still a little bit competitive, and people kind of look to the left and right, and they kind of look, they're doing pretty well, and I don't know if I'm doing so well. So there's still a little bit of like stress and concern, but like everyone's pretty cooperative. Everyone's like awesome, sharing notes and sharing recordings. So it's just kind of that, like, getting used to that everyone's just so bright, and being average now, to be honest, is one great accomplishment, because our averages are maybe like an A- or B+. And if you're average, I mean, average of people who have like a 3.9 in undergrad, I think that's very stellar. So you just have to kind of frame your mind a bit differently, and understand that as long as you kind of meet all the requirements, you're going to be a dentist in 4 years. Another thing I think that was kind of hard was I didn't take some of the courses that were basic science courses in first year. For example, I took histology, which was a half year course, but I didn't take microbiology before. I never took gross anatomy, and gross anatomy especially is the toughest course in first year. They always tell you it's going to have the most information to memorize. We have a lot of bell ringers every so often, like every 1 or 2 months, and the bell ringers are very stressful because it's a different type of evaluation. It's no longer like a multiple choice test or even a written test. It's a test of, are you able to contain the stress in the amount of time you're given, which is maybe like a minute to answer 2 questions, and then you move on to the next station. And there's just so much to learn that it can get very easy to be stressed out. And a lot of us had to kind of overcome that hurdle. Most of us were really worried when we got our first kind of bell ringer mark back, and myself included, but I think we all end up doing pretty okay. I ended up with a pretty good mark. So, that's kind of the adjustment. And I think the other thing you have to kind of get used to is the hands-on part. I think part of dentistry is not just being good at the books, it's also being good with your hands. Especially, when we started restorative dentistry in January, there was a big transition to using the hand pieces, and sometimes your first set of preps and your set of fills, they're not the greatest in the world. And I actually remember one of my demonstrators telling me that one of my amalgam fillings, and it hurts to say this, but it was just for like practice. It was considered clinical failure. The amalgam was kind of not ideal, and so to this day I still remember it. But you get better at it. There's a lot of opportunities after school to practice. And actually, as a class vice president, I'm organizing all of these sessions after school. We do it twice a week, and we get about 2 hours. So it's really important for students who are kind of getting used to the hands-on part to take more practice, to get more practice. This tooth, you have to fill this tooth, you have to do this. And I remember actually my first practical, we had to do a rubber dam, and I'm pretty good with rubber dams, but for some reason the first rubber dam in that practical kept breaking, and I tried the second one, and then the third one, and then everyone else was kind of chugging along the way, and I was very stressed because I couldn't even get the rubber dam on. But everything worked out. But I came out of that practical thinking, wow, like that's a ball of stress. And that's D1. D1 is a lot of different challenges thrown at you. You got to be good with your brain, the books, as well as your hands. And
right.
Everyone's so smart, but everyone gets through it, and that's the most important part.
Good. Now the flip side is, what did you like best about the first year? I know you mentioned the camaraderie and the fact that most of your classmates were very helpful. What else did you like best about your first year in dental school?
I think one great thing about dental school is that the more hands-on stuff we do, that's the hands-on stuff is fun. It's a nice break from hitting the books and always sitting in lecture, and it also gives you a sense of why you've worked so hard in undergrad or your master's to get into dental school. It's that feeling of, one day I'm going to be a dentist. This is really enjoyable. This is why I've worked so hard to get here. So I think it's a sense of just accomplishment, and it feels great that we're starting to pick up the hand pieces. We're starting to do some perio exploring on our fellow classmates. We're getting used to the dental chair, the dental operatory environment. And I think the other great thing is our instructors are wonderful. I think they treat us as colleagues. And I think that's one of the best things about dental school versus undergrad is in dental school, they really look at you as someone who's going to be a dentist, someone who's going to be your colleague in a few years. And I think the way they respect you and the way they treat you with the greatest respect. And I'm happy that I get to learn under these wonderful instructors.
Oh, that's great, man. So we talked about some of the challenges, hardest parts, and we also talked about some of the things that you liked about the first year. So, first year, rewind. Knowing what you know now, if you had to go back and start first year from day one all over again, what would you do differently? What things would you do differently?
I thought about this question, and honestly, I'm not a person with many regrets. I mean, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. I think my advice for anyone going to first year is it's going to be stressful, but you have to learn how to deal with your stress. So a lot of my friends, they go to the gym together. A lot of, including myself, we like to get involved outside of class. So I think getting involved, spending more time with your classmates. For example, every year we have this wonderful talent charity show, and we get to sort of make fun of our faculty, and they know it's for fun. We get to sing. I was part of an a cappella group. Some people dance, some people, they put on some funny skits. I think what I would tell people is really get involved, break out of your shell. You're in dental school now. Everyone's a little bit trying new things, new experiences. And then another thing I would tell people that is just to be friendly to everyone. I love the fact that it's not just a camaraderie of with your classmates. I love the fact that in dental school, it reminds me a bit of high school where, you get your own lockers, but you also have these upper years who are willing to sort of help and guide you every step of the way. Yeah. I met a lot of wonderful upper year friends, and I would really recommend people to do that. They're the type of people that would kind of help you for this evaluation, I would recommend you to do this, or, be careful about this, or, I would recommend you take time off in the summer and go to this place or try this mission trip, or, having someone that has been in your shoes, I think is so helpful. And, that's why I'm kind of sad that the fourth years have graduated, because now they're kind of off doing, a GPR, or they're doing a residency, or they're working. And now it's you've just met them for a year and now they're gone. You don't see them for a while. But it's just awesome. The camaraderie, as you explained, that part of dental school is the best. It's the people. The people make dental school awesome.
Yeah. And that kind of goes into my last question, which goes along with advice. You mentioned advice that you would give people is being involved in extracurricular activities, especially those that allow you to meet other people. It sounds like maybe even getting involved if you can network with some of the upper class D3s and D4s as they transition out of school or have had their transition into clinic. What other advice would you give to those pre-dental students that are looking to make dentistry a career, that are applying to dental school, and then also those that are entering dental school for this first year coming up in 18? What advice would you give them?
I think for pre-dental students, I really recommend people to shadow. I think shadowing is so important because even now I shadow. I spend, this summer I do research, I shadow. I think shadowing allows you to sort of explore the different avenues of dentistry. One great thing about dentistry, and I hope some pre-dents will know this, even first-year dental students, is that there are no two ways. There are so many different ways to practice dentistry. This dentist versus that dentist. Everyone does it differently, and I think that's the beauty of dentistry. You allow yourself to kind of mold the career to the way you want. And I think the more pre-dents can appreciate this, the more excited they will be when they enter dental school, especially when it's tough. They understand that after 4 years, they can kind of mold their career the way they want. So shadow, get to know more people, shadow generalists, shadow specialists, shadow small practices that are just starting off, shadow big practices, shadow established practices, even shadow areas in a really busy city. It might be more saturated, shadow areas that are less saturated. I think, and ask good questions. Be prepared to ask questions like, why did you start your practice here? What are some of the pitfalls? What would you tell a pre-dental student or a dental student? What is something important that you felt you took away from your dental school that wasn't taught in school? All these things I would say a pre-dental student, they should do, because it not only builds the excitement for dentistry, but it also shows them there are so many possibilities. And dentistry is not just about teeth. I think after D1, I could tell you it's not just about teeth. It's about a career that takes care of people, doing it the way you want to, and with a lifestyle you want to mold. So I think that's great. For dental students, first year dental students, I think, stress, it's going to be very stressful. So take time for yourself. Make sure you take time to not only hang out with your dental friends, but always keep contact with your non-dental friends. I think your non-dental friends, they kind of give you perspectives, and they allow you to that are different than your dental friends. And, always make sure to have time with friends and family. Appreciate the time you have off. If you have a summer off, even now, going into dental school, really go on an amazing vacation. Do all the things you wanted to do before you start dental school, because dental school, as we talked about before, is a marathon. It's going to be a long journey, and you need to rest up. You need to do all the fun things you want. Don't worry if you spend a little bit more money. Really make sure you take care of yourself before dental school and during dental school. Nutrition is so important. Exercise is so important. Friends and family, as I said before, just make sure you enjoy your time as a dental student, because it's going to speed by very quickly. I'm done D1, but maybe the next time we talk, it's D2 or D3, and it's gonna be quick. And make sure you enjoy and appreciate that you're a dental student. It's an amazing profession. I've had the most wonderful mentors. Surround yourself with mentors who are willing to teach, that are willing to sort of, take you under their wing and really show you how great it can be. And that's probably my biggest advice: mentorship.
Yeah, it's key, and I've had some great ones before dental school, during dental school, and after dental school. Those mentors are people that will be sources of information and will help you transform into being a mentor yourself, because in about 5 or 10 years, you're going to have some people reaching out to you, in addition to the people that are reaching out to you now as a rising second year dental student that want to get more insight into that first year. And that's why we do these podcasts, this show, so that those incoming D1s and those pre-dentals that are out there preparing their applications to get to where you're getting, they have an idea as to what to expect, and they can kind of plan accordingly. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you if they have questions about your application process, about your D1 year, or other things that you're doing? What's the best way to contact you?
2 ways. First is email. So my email is jeremyk.ho@mail.utoronto.ca. That's one. I always respond to email pretty quickly.
Mail.utoronto.
Toronto. Yeah. So lowercase u and then Toronto and then .ca, because we're Canadian.
Yes.
The other way is LinkedIn. You can always find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to connect with you. And if you have any questions, it could be dental school, it could be dentistry in general, how I sort of manage time in and outside of school, happy to answer those as well.
And what's your handle on LinkedIn?
It's just Jeremy Ho.
Okay, Jeremy Ho on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, it'll say like University of Toronto.
Okay, gotcha. So LinkedIn is Jeremy Ho. Well, Jeremy Ho, student Dr. Jeremy Ho, thanks so much for your time. This has been a great resource and great bit of information, not only for the people listening, but for me too. I learned something new about the application process and what some of the schools in Canada use as a pre-selection or pre-interview thing that I had no idea about. So this was even very helpful to me as well. For you, those of you that are out there that need some help, that have some concerns or conflicts or issues or problems about getting into dental school, you can always send me a question right here at newdentistcoach@gmail.com, newdentistcoach@gmail.com. That way we can get those answers to you. Feel free to contact student Dr. Jeremy, and he can help you also. And again, we're here for you. You guys ask the questions, and we get the answers to you. Jeremy, thanks so much, and we're definitely going to follow your progress. I want to talk to you around this time next year for the D2 year because, man, you thought this year was interesting. Woo! I know how it is in the U.S. I'm sure Canada is very similar. So get your sleep, get your energy, take your vitamins, and get your rest, and drink a lot of water because this second year is it's gonna be a doozy, man. But you'll be able to do it. You'll be fine. So we'll follow you through this progress, and we'll talk to you soon after your second year, and we'll also talk to you about your plans for pursuing specialty program on the next segment. Okay.
Sounds good, Dr. Hayes.
Hey, man. Thanks again for your time. Appreciate you, man. We'll talk to you soon. See ya.
All the best.
All right. Bye.